The stage is our therapy. The stage is our let go. It's what I do.
Once the pandemic hit, I decided to come to New York City. Performing is not just for finances, it's also like a passion of mine.
Not having that feedback of an audience in front of you has been just crazy.
Welcome again to Prime Latino Media Salon. I am Theo Louis, and it is an honor and a privilege to have two professional colleagues that I greatly admire. So that's my disclaimer. But we're here talking about the new PBS series. It's a 6-part series called From Performers to Spectators, COVID-19 NYC. And we're interviewing one of our madrinas, Melisa Ramos, who's the creator of the series and also the executive producer. And what is a series without a producer and a cinematographer with a stellar eye? Then Miguel Miller from Miami, who lives there and came to New York to do the series. So it premieres on All Arts Channel, the PBS series, starting Monday, June 6th at 7 p.m. It's a 30-minute show. It's 6-part series for 4 consecutive, weeks in June, followed in July. And it's again from 7 to 7:30. It's a 30-minute show. And this is a series, as its title also expresses. In a nutshell, it's about performing artists, most of them Latino, but not all, who were impacted by COVID-19 when all the performance spaces in New York City were closed. What did they do? How did they earn a livelihood? How did they overcome depression or rise above it and inspire us as we're still in the midst of a pandemic and hoping it'll just go to an endemia? So Melisa, let's start off. What's your background? Again, I know you as a filmmaker, a producer, an editor, an animator in New York City, but what gave you the skills or the wherewithal to take this project on?
First, thank you, Theo Louis, for having me. What is the background that gave me I would say the resources is first that I'm an editor, and editors, we tell stories, we alter the story, right? And when I came to New York, my first job was to be an assistant editor at a post-production house of documentaries and reality TV. So I learned how to alter the stories with all these interviews. There were projects from Discovery Channel, from A&E, like a lot of content. And this is a job that you have to learn to do fast pace. So you have to observe a lot. So to me, it's the key is in observing, right? And mounting and building the story. And this project was a challenge because first, it's about the pandemic. Second, it's time sensitive. And third, it is so humanly touching that there were some interviews that I cried and I would text the artist, hey, dude, you just made me cry. I hate you. I love and I hate you for that, And it makes you feel like, oh, this is why I do this. So I can tell these stories, but I also can be in touch with them. And it changes you. I think that's the most rewarding thing for me of interviewing others' life is that at some point you can see yourself reflected in others. So we can see us through others. And in the pandemic, we were ripped apart. Right? We couldn't see each other.
Right. Sadly.
So if you don't see others, you don't see yourself. Like, why do we do this? Because our jobs were also taken away, right? Live events, right? Louis, you used to do so many live events.
Right.
So that's like taken. And that background helped me build these stories, and also having precise questions. Like I made the same questions to everyone. I had a goal with the story, because if I go too broad, I will get lost in the documentary style.
And Miguel, you came from Miami, at the height of the beginning of the pandemic, when New York City was the epicenter of deaths. I mean, by now, 1 million people have died from the pandemic in the United States, over 35,000 in New York City alone. And, I'm sure you would say there was bravery in the artists you interviewed, but also the history that you shared with Melisa, the skills that you brought to the table, because again, not only were you producer, but you were the cinematographer. And as we say in Spanish, tú tienes un ojo, you have that special eye, that it's almost like Elizabeth Taylor always said, beauty is 50% what you do to it, but 50% what you're born with. So, and you took this also as a co-storyteller in capturing painful moments in passionate artists' lives. But would you say this is an uplifting, inspirational series that you stand by?
150%, actually. I was touched by every single one of those interviews, but I was also I learned so much from it, from all of them in different ways. As you mentioned, coming to New York, like Melisa said, to do a documentary about the pandemic, but not only about the pandemic, during the pandemic, at the height of the pandemic, it was almost surreal. At one point, we are on a train, on a busy train at a busy time, when it is just Melisa and I in the whole train. And we looked at each other and we said, wow, I'm attracted to surrealism, but this is a creepy surreal life that we are experiencing right now. And
plus you were also putting your life at risk. In those were the early days, like in the early days of AIDS, when you were HIV infected, you knew you were going to get AIDS and you knew you were going to die. At the early part of the disease, when you were sick and you went to the hospital, if you didn't have COVID before going to the hospital, you had it in the hospital. If you were in packed trains, where we know a lot of our low-wage earners in New York City who got infected, people of color were the preponderance and died. And here the two of you are in a crowded train with these low-wage earners who have no choice but to go to work. They were our first line, defenders. And you were standing there literally shoulder to shoulder, but at risk. So would you do it again, Miguel?
Oh, yes. Call me tomorrow, and in the same conditions, the same situation, with the same team, would not hesitate for a minute, not even for a minute, because I learned so much during the making of this, not only about these people's life, but also about my life, about things that I'm doing that could be better, things that I'm doing that I didn't know, wasn't aware that I was doing it. During the making of this documentary, I sharpened and I became more in touch with my instincts as a filmmaker. I knew there was something about creating pictures, about painting through a camera, but because of this documentary, I was able to be more in touch with it, which I wasn't before. I knew there was something, but I didn't know what it was. And listening to these artists, these magnificent creatures, I call them an inspirational people, stories, and how some of them, most of them, evolved during this process, during this whole catastrophic times, taught me so much. And the process of getting there was, that alone was a challenge, because I had to bring so many things to make these images look good. But yeah, I couldn't bring all those things. And like I said earlier, having to make a test before coming to COVID, have to do it right before, try not to have any contact, because I'm coming to Melisa's place. I don't want to bring anything to her. I'm like panicking about my interaction with her as well. And we are so close, we like in the same space. it was interesting. It was very interesting and learning.
But something I find remarkable about this project and your relationship and what happens to us as artists, as Melissa said, they were without work, so was she. So here she creates this wonderful project, but that also we're resourceful artists with, you're both independent artists. And here you come from Miami to shoot in New York City at the height of the beginning of the pandemic. And Melissa, to me, art is social policy. You can't separate art. So when I'm talking about who were the people getting infected, mostly in New York, of the 35,000 who died, were Black and brown people. And here you are riding the subway to go to Pregones where you shot or go to someone's home, and you're documenting a slice of history, but also a slice of society and politics. How did you digest all of that in telling the story?
Always I put up front that we could do something that can heal, right? Because I believe from this experience that that's what artists and filmmakers should do. We should make projects that heal, that that uplift the viewer. And I think that was my intention from the beginning. And I found these voices that healed me, heals the audience. I think it'll be able to heal, and they heal in the process.
Absolutely.
We had artists that were like, I'm so happy to put on my makeup and just do this interview.
It was symbiotic healing. Here we are on
Exactly.
Theo Louis at Prime Latino Media Salon with the creator and the executive producer, Melisa Ramos, from Performers to Spectators, COVID-19 NYC, with also interviewing Miguel Miller, who's in Miami, who came to New York to shoot this project during the height of the pandemic. Miguel Miller, who was producer on the project and also cinematographer. And, one last question before we get off is, so this will premiere on PBS All Arts Channel starting Monday, June 6th at 7 p.m. And for consecutive Mondays after that, it's a 6-part series. It's going to spill all the way into July. Each 30-minute episode has 3 artists. They interviewed a total of 18 in these 6 episodes. And you should not miss it. It's inspirational. It's about our artists really impacted at the height of the pandemic when performing art spaces were closed. And what I want to know is one quick advice, less than a minute for each of you. Melissa, what advice do you have for someone developing a film or TV series of what they should think about before they run out to shoot something that they normally don't think of doing? What's the best advice you have for them?
Based on this experience that is documentary type, is first, have your story clear. Have the goal clear, because it's very challenging. If you don't have it clear, when you come to edit, you never finish it. Yeah.
No, I think that's
Golden.
That's golden. Thank you. Because I was looking for a price tag. Let's just say that was platinum. And
Well,
Miguel,
that is
right. And Miguel, a quickie, what is, your role here was cinema producer, but also cinematographer. What do most people not think about that they should think about before they pick that camera out and either run out or point it in someone's face? What should they take into consideration that they don't often think about? A pearl of wisdom, a 10 cents worth of advice that you would give to a filmmaker or someone developing a TV series, as the two of you have successfully.
I don't know if I'm that wise, but I'll tell you, for me, I believe is associating yourself with people that believe in you, they back you up, and then respect you. That's simple. It doesn't have to be that many. But those that are around you have to believe in you, respect you, and back you up 100%.
And you know what? It is so clear in the end project that, again, a word I love in Spanish, sano. It's such a holistically healthy and beautiful expression of our artistic independent community, of Latinos, of people from other cultures. But I'm telling you, congratulations on the premiere of your PBS series on the All Arts channel. You can get it either directly through TV or just go on allarts.on the web, and you should be able to get it. It premieres on June 6th. It's 6 episodes, 3 different artists each, for 18 inspirational stories that will just blow you out of the water, even as we're still going in the pandemic and paying homage to 1 million people who've died in the United States. And this is just a slice of New York City. So not only congratulations, but thank you, Miguel. Thank you, Melisa, for giving birth to this project. And, we cheer you on and look forward to your next work. This is just the tip of the iceberg. We want more TV series. We want more films. We want more documentaries. We want more features. We want you developing animation projects. The world is your oyster. So felicitaciones, Tío Louis of Prime Latino Media with Melisa Ramos and Miguel Miller. And thank you for tuning in.